Are you just starting out with composing your own music? Hi, it's Simon from Composing Academy, and today I'm going to walk you through step by step how to write a simple 16-bar piece of piano music, complete with a melody, accompaniment, and basic structure. Check out my free companion guide to this video, Composing Cinematic Music in 5 Easy Steps ebook, which outlines the step-by-step method I'll show you today in a handy PDF ebook. The link for that is in the description below. Most composers nowadays use a computer to compose music, and use either software called a Digital Audio Workstation, or DAW for short, such as Cubase, Logic, or Reaper, or notation software such as Sibelius or MuseScore. In essence, a DAW will let you compose easily using samples and other high-quality virtual instruments, which in turn can help make your music sound sonically polished. Notation software, on the other hand, is more like a word processor for music notes. They can be useful for visually seeing what you're composing, but you can't easily change parameters which will help to make your music sound good, such as MIDI controller data. I'll be primarily using a DAW called Cubase for this tutorial. Cubase is available as a 30-day free trial, so you can download the program and follow along if you so wish. Whilst Cubase will enable us to record or draw in the MIDI data needed to compose our piece, composers typically make use of additional sounds to actually hear the music that they write. These additional sounds come in the form of samples or virtual instruments, and for this tutorial I'll be only using a free piano sound called Soft Piano from the Spitfire Audio's Labs range. See below for a link in the description to the Labs webpage where you can download the piano free of charge. Okay, so here I am in the main window of Cubase, and you can see that I have a complete blank slate to start with. Let's begin by adding a track and loading a sound onto it. I'm going to right click in this area to the left and select Add Instrument Track. That will bring up the list of virtual instruments which I have installed on my system. I'm going to select Labs and then Add Track. Once I have the Labs software loaded, I'm then going to load the soft piano instrument which has been used in many film and TV productions. Now we have a piano sound, let's talk about the components that our music will have. Most music is made up of both melody and harmony. Melody is another word for tune. It's the part of a piece which you often find yourself singing along with. Harmony, on the other hand, is often two or more notes played together, often as a chord, which typically accompanies and supports a melody in the background. When writing music, you can either start with the melody first and then work out the harmony afterwards, or start with the harmony first and then compose the melody based on the chords chosen. I'm going to do the latter today, starting with a chord progression, which will then add a melody to. So I've got 3 common chord progressions here, all in the key of C major, which you can choose from for your piece. The first progression is C major, A minor, F major, and G major. The second progression is C major, G major, A minor, and F major. And the third progression is A minor, F major, C major, and G major. You can choose any one, but I'm going to choose the third one here. Once we've chosen our chord progression, we're then going to input this into the DAW, using the piano sound, which we previously loaded. When inputting notes, if you have a musical keyboard which you can connect to your computer via USB or MIDI, you can then record yourself playing these into the DAW. Alternatively, you can just draw the notes in with a mouse, like I'm going to do here. So here in Cubase, I'm first going to draw in a MIDI region where I would like the notes to live. To do this, press 8 to bring the pencil tool up, and then you can draw a region which lasts for 4 bars. Then with the selector tool activated, you can do this by pressing 1. You can then double click the region to go into the MIDI editor, where you can then input the notes. Using the piano on the left hand side for reference, You can now draw in the notes of the chord progression like this, making sure that each chord lasts for one bar. Once all the notes are drawn in, you can then hear them by pressing the play button or spacebar. Now that we have our chord progression, let's set about writing a short melody to go over the top. When composing a melody to a given chord progression, it can be useful to initially limit yourself to just using the notes that are used in each chord. So for example, my first chord here is A minor. So I'm going to limit myself to the notes of A, C, and E. There are a few ways to experiment with different melodies. One way is to play back your chord progression and try to hum or imagine the melody in your head. Once you have an idea, try to work out the notes. Another way is to draw in a batch of notes in a particular rhythm, and then in Cubase we can use the arrow keys on your computer keyboard to move the notes up and down until we find a pitch that sounds good. For this first bar, I'm going to draw in 3 notes, C, A, and C. Moving on, as the chord for bar 2 is an F major chord, I'm going to again limit myself to just the notes of F, A, and C. I think I'm going to stick to the A for this one. On to the next bar, and the third chord is C major. So again, I'm going to limit the notes I can use to C, E, and G. To keep some coherence to the melody, I'm going to copy the rhythm of the first 2 bars into bars 3 and 4, and then using the arrow keys, move the notes to a C, E, and then G. The final chord is a G major, so I have the notes of G, B, and D to choose from. Let's try a D to finish on and see how that sounds. Whilst I'm sticking to the notes of each chord for the melody in each bar, if you're feeling confident, you can also venture into using additional notes which are not part of the chord. Just make sure that a good proportion of your notes in each bar match the underlying chord or harmony, and try to aim for lots of movement by step or patterns of notes which are next to each other. Writing that perfect melody is a lifelong journey for many composers and songwriters. Often the strongest melodies are ones which have a fine balance between repetition and development or variation. Because of this, a useful tip is to repeat elements such as rhythm, especially when you're in the process of extending a melody. Also, try to avoid large leaps between notes in your melody. Generally, the smaller the step, the better. With your completed 4-bar chord progression and melody, you now have a musical building block which we can extend into a 16-bar piece of music. We'll call this first building block section A. A good melody is one that balances repetition as well as development. So in the first stage of extending the piece, I'm first going to copy and paste these first 4 bars so that they play twice. To do this in Cubase, I'm going to select both the chords and melody so that they're highlighted, and then I'm going to press Ctrl or Command on Mac plus the letter D, which will then duplicate the notes to form the new section. Next, I'm going to change 3 or 4 notes in this new section, so not to make these next 4 bars a direct copy of the previous 4. When changing these notes, I'm still going to keep within the limits of the notes used for each chord for now. As this section is very similar to the original A section, but not the same, I'm going to call it A1. So now we've added another A section, it's time to add some contrast in the form of a B section. Adding contrast gives the listener a break from the A section material and helps the music to progress forward. I'm going to begin by drawing in a new 4-bar region here from bars 9 to 13, where the B section will belong. For this new section, I'm going to keep the same chords as the previous sections, but this time change the order of them. So instead of A minor, F major, C major, and G major, I've reordered the chords to F major, C major, A minor, and G major. Have a go at changing the order of the original chord progression you chose. Remember, in order to keep it simple, choose the same chords, but vary the order for this B section. So next it's time to add the melody to this B section. As this section's main role is to contrast with the original material, try to vary elements such as the rhythm as well as pitch, to help add to the sense of contrast. Let's take a listen to the melody here. So now that we have the B section, let's conclude the piece by returning to the original A material. I'm going to start by copying and pasting the original A section to the beginning of bar 13 here. In order for the piece to feel like it's come to a natural ending, it makes sense to reorder the last two chords of the A section, so that the final chord is C major or chord 1. With this change of order, you'll want to make sure to tweak the melody to fit this new change as well. Ending your melody on the home note of C can also help to conclude the music naturally. As we've changed the melody notes a little, let's call this section A2. So now we have 16 bars of melody and harmony. Let's take a listen to the whole piece so far. Now we have a chord progression and melody, let's set about making the piano accompaniment a little more interesting. We can use what's called an ostinato to quickly write an accompanying part, replacing the 3-note block chords that we currently have. An ostinato is a repeating rhythmic pattern, and they can be a great way of adding motion and energy to a piece. Here are 4 different ostinatos which you can choose from. For each bar's ostinato, we will again use only the notes that form each chord. These ostinato examples are just using the notes of the chord of A minor, so only contain the notes of A, C, and E. Make sure that when you change chords though, you also change the notes in the ostinato, initially just using the notes which are found in the new chord. Doing this will ensure your accompaniment won't clash with the notes of your melody. For added continuity, try to maintain the shape of the notes in the ostinato during each chord change. You can see that for ostinato 1, in the chord of A minor, we have A, C, E, and then back down to C again. In order to keep the same shape when the chord changes to F major, you would then use F, A, C, and then back down to A again. Once you get more confident with using ostinatos, like with melody writing, you can then venture into using additional notes not found in the main chord. So go through the rest of your piece, adding an ostinato as a simple accompaniment, like this, where I'm using ostinato 2. Let's take a listen to the completed melody and accompaniment. that's a quick outline of how to write a simple 16-bar piano piece. Start by choosing one of the chord progressions, compose a short melody, and then develop that melody further by using an A1 section, then a contrasting B section, before returning back to the A section again to finish. Finally, think of an accompaniment based on the chord progression, and then use ostinatos as a quick way to add a supporting layer to your melody. If you found the video useful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more composing tips and tricks. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below as well.